I wonder what my lady would say. I wonder what my lady would say. I wonder what.
Hello, my name is Mallory. You're watching GCTV. I'm here with the State Senator, Paul Mark. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good, you?
Wonderful.
Can you describe your job as a state senator?
Yeah, as a state senator, what we do is we try to make laws for the state, and in the state government we have a House and a Senate, and the Senate is only 40 of us, so we're expected to be a little more deliberative, and so we have the ability to talk to our counterparts a lot and build relations, and then I spend a lot of time also making appearances and helping people with some of the day-to-day stuff, like if they are having trouble renewing their license or they're having trouble getting like heating assistance. Like we help with a lot of that kind of stuff too.
What does a typical day look like for you?
There's no such thing. So it really varies. There's like 2 or 3 days a week that I go into Boston. And when you get down to Boston, sometimes there's floor debate and sometimes there's committee hearings and sometimes there's just meetings. And then the rest of the week, and this often includes both days of the weekend, you're running around between meetings, you're answering emails, you're taking phone calls, you're doing Zooms. It's almost nonstop. Like it's easily 14 hours, 6 days a week. It is essentially my life is doing this job only.
What made you want to become a state senator?
Well, that's interesting. When I was 8 years old, Dukakis was the governor, and he was running for president. I met him, and I thought that was exciting. And then when he lost, I was really disappointed. And so I started working on campaigns when I was like 16. And then when I was, when I was graduated high school, my father had lost his job, and so we didn't have a lot of money. And I went to UMass for a year, and I had to drop out because I didn't have any money after a year. And eventually I got a job working as a lineman at the phone company. And they had a tuition plan. I went back to school, and I got involved in the union, and I ended up going through law school and everything. And a day came that the state representative job opened, and I just remember thinking about when I was 19 years old, I was dropping out of college, and when I was 30 years old, I was a lawyer, and I had a house, and I had a good job, and I always thought it was really unfair that there was a barrier in my way that was financial, and so I thought it would be good if I ran for representative and then eventually senator, because I wanted to try to take away those barriers from people and try to make people have like an opportunity to get ahead, because there's so much talent and there's so much positivity and possibility for so many people in our region, like often gets forgotten. So that was the biggest reason.
What was your career path like before going into politics?
I kind of answered it, but I worked as a mail carrier at the post office, and then I worked, like I said, at the phone company back when you had landline phones, and I'd climb telephone poles and I'd work underground, and I would come into your house if you had a second line back then, and like we'd fix the landline phone in your house. I also did a lot of work with the pay phones, believe it or not. And while I was working, I went back to college and I did an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree and a master's degree and a law degree and a doctoral degree. And I was really involved with my union, the Electrical Workers Union, and I was our union steward and I was our political director. So it was a very non-traditional path to eventually running for office. And when I ran, I was pretty young. I was only 30 years old, and I won a 3-way primary, and then I won a 3-way general election as well. And ever since I've been in office, like it's been really wonderful. Bless you, to try to help people in the area.
Did you expect to work in politics when you were younger?
No, never. No, I thought you had to be a rich person or someone's kid or some kind of legacy to be in politics. That's what it looks like a lot. And so I took a pretty big risk. I mean, I gave up a job that I probably could still work at today to do this. But no, I have worked on campaigns since I was 16 and at every level, all the way up to presidential. But I never thought I'd be the one that ran, no.
What's something about your job that most people don't realize?
Probably how much time it takes and how much driving we do. My Senate district I have 57 cities and towns, and it's in all 4 western counties.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I easily do 1,000 miles a week and 55,000 miles a year in the car. And then I didn't realize it. And so when I said it earlier, I'm being serious. Like when you take on this job and you live so far away from Boston, you're essentially giving up most of your free time. You are really focused on this. And any person that's ever approached me about running for state office, I always lay it out to them like as realistically as I can, and I wish someone had done it to me. but now I'm stuck.
What skills or experiences have helped you most in this role?
I think from an ideological point of view, like a political point of view, the thing that helped me the most, even though I wish it had never happened, was when my father lost his job. Like the warehouse he worked at closed down, and my family really struggled for like the next 5 years. And there were times we needed food stamps. There was times we lost our house. We moved around a lot. I went to a lot of different schools, and then even the experience of being in college and recognizing that I couldn't do this and I couldn't afford to live, and then having the opportunity to kind of fight my way through, I think has helped me understand what a lot of people in our area are going through. And then it's going to sound funny, when I was a mailman, I used to go to everybody's door because I was delivering the mail, and so that helped me prepare for campaigning. And then working at the phone company, it's the same thing. You're always like kind of problem solving, and that's a lot of what we do in this job. And then doing the college education I did really helped me get a base to understand how the law works and how we can try to impact that in a way that helps us here in Western Massachusetts.
What is the most rewarding part of your work?
When a project that you're working on happens. So right now, community college is now free in Massachusetts. In 2013 and 14, I was the co-chair of a subcommittee on student loans and debt, and we proposed community college being free 10 years ago. So when you see something like that eventually happen and you see the positive impact that it has on people, I think that's a great thing. And I mean, here in Greenfield, when I used to be the representative for Greenfield, I mean, there was a new high school, a new courthouse, the Olver Transit Center, the parking garage. I mean, there were so many great projects that we actually got the funding for, working with, at the time, Senator Stan Rosenberg. And, it's really good when someone says to you, like, thank you for helping making that happen. And when you see that people are benefited by the results of your work.
What are some of the biggest challenges you face as a senator?
Right now, it's certainly for all of us in Western Massachusetts, our distance from Boston and the number of communities that me and my counterparts have to represent, because we're always overwhelmed. We're always trying to play catch up. But right now, we're also really being impacted by the federal government. And the way the federal government, and this is Congress and the president, are working right now is they are systematically cutting funding and cutting programs that people in Massachusetts need. And it is different than even back in 2017 to 20, in that it feels more vindictive, and that as a state, we're struggling to maintain the programming that we here think is important, and we're also finding it not difficult, but finding it a challenge to navigate the uncertainty and the chaos of what is happening in Washington.
How do you balance your work at the State House with being present in your local communities?
Yeah, you dedicate the time that you're not in Boston to going to events. So like this weekend I was at the Festival of the Hills in Conway. I went to the Fall Foliage Parade in North Adams. I was at an event in Pittsfield that I'm already blanking on. I was at something in Sandusfield. I was something in Cummington. So you have to make a lot of effort to dedicate making sure that you're accessible. And we try to have office hours like all over the district, and it's a lot of work, but I think people see the results. I had a couple of people say thank you for being present at stuff. It really matters to us right now.
What do you think are the biggest challenges facing this region right now?
Getting attention getting adequate levels of funding, maybe trying to cooperate and collaborate a bit better than we have in the past, and thinking more about how we want things to be in the future as opposed to looking back at how they used to be. And I think in Western Massachusetts, we've convinced ourselves of this narrative that Boston doesn't pay attention to us, and that can be true, but if we make the effort and we put in the work and we have plans to present on what we would do with better funding and better programming, I think we've been getting better results lately.
How do you ensure rural voices and priorities are heard in Boston?
I am the most rural of all legislators. I am the only legislator that comes from a town of fewer than 1,000 people. And so I'm the Senate appointee to an organization called the Rural Policy Advisory Commission. And what we do in that is we try to make sure that Western Massachusetts is collaborating with small town friends and neighbors around the state, because we have a lot in common with other parts of the state that are also struggling with the weight of having the same expectations as other cities and towns, but having very few people that live with us.
How do you stay connected with voters given that your district is so large?
Well, we go to events, we do mailings, we do emails, we do newsletters, and regardless of anyone runs against me or not, like we always run a campaign every 2 years, and I did that as a state rep as well. So we try to go door to door and make sure people know how they can get a hold of us. And then I do office hours in each of my 4 counties twice a month, and I also have a fixed office in Pittsfield, which isn't so useful for people in Greenfield for sure, but is, I think, definitely a place that people know they can come and get in touch with us.
What are some recent successes you're proud of for Western Massachusetts?
We got, in the way road funding works, money for local roads. Something I got for the first time 2 years ago in the Senate was an allocation that 25 million out of 300 million would be based on road miles instead of population. And out here we have a lot of road miles, we don't have a lot of people. And so I'm really, really excited that this year is the 3rd year we've been doing it, and the governor's now starting to take credit for it too, but we were able to get $100 million out of $300 million. So now 1/3 of it goes to communities based on how many miles of road they have. And so people in my towns have been saying, wow, this is great. We're getting like a 40-50% increase in the amount of road money. And that helps with local property taxes, and it helps small towns be able to undertake projects that sometimes they'd have to wait 3-4 years for.
How do you support small towns that have limited budgets and staff?
All of that we just said. So we get the money for roads, we get the money for schools, and then we also serve sometimes as almost like advisors. That I hear more from my smallest towns than I do from my cities. And I think in the cities there's a reliable form of city government for people to go to, whereas in like the smallest towns, people turn to me and to the state representative and ask us how we can help them a lot.
What are your top priorities for improving the local economy?
Well, right now we're working on an environmental bond bill, a transportation bond bill, an economic development bill, and a higher education bill, and an energy bill too. So in all of those, what we try to do is, how do I make sure in a package that might be $1 billion, $2 billion, that a fair share of that comes back to our communities, because we all pay taxes down to Boston, and I think it's really important that we get as much money back as we possibly can. And then with the energy bill specifically, like we're looking for ways to find out how to make electricity more affordable in Massachusetts without compromising our values and protecting the environment. And I think that's important for economic development.
How do you approach issues like housing, healthcare, and transportation in rural areas?
Yeah, we try to tailor all of these legislative packages to make sure that something is going to be included for the smallest towns as well. And so once a bill like the housing bill passes that we did last session, out of $4 billion, we try to have meetings between the Department of Housing and Livable Communities and our small towns as well, and our local organizations, to try to make sure that they're finding solutions that fit for us. So like people in Boston probably don't realize you need septic systems and you need wells in the small towns, and they're thinking about how to put a bunch of houses in. Like you can't do that if you don't have access to running water. And so like I've had these conversations and people are surprised, but that's what we try to do. We try to open eyes and tailor solutions so that everybody can take advantage.
What role do you think the arts, culture, and tourism play in strengthening our communities?
I think they play a serious role, and it's a good question because I happen to be the chair of the Joint Committee on Tourism, Arts, and Cultural Development. And so we've, in a time of great funding uncertainty, we were able to increase the amount of money that goes to the Mass Cultural Council. And that's become more important than ever because federal funding is drying up and grants are being rescinded. And in my district specifically, we have amazing institutions like Tanglewood and Double Edge Theater and Mass MoCA. And, you know, they all need our help because they are key parts of the community. They provide jobs, they provide economic impact, and they provide sense of community and belonging. So I think tourism, arts, and culture are really important, especially in our area.
Has your job changed since Governor Memorial Healy took office?
Well, it's changed a couple of times since I've been in office. Technology has changed. So when I was first elected, there was Facebook, but there wasn't social media the way it works now, and there certainly wasn't all the negativity. So that has changed. In terms of like who's the governor, I've had the chance to serve alongside Governor Deval Patrick, Governor Charlie Baker, and Governor Maura Healey, and I think they all had strengths and they've all had things I wish they would do better. The good news about Maura Healey is she's the first of the three. I have her cell phone number, so like I can text her and I can get answers from her, and that's pretty nice.
Has your job changed since Donald Trump became president?
Yes, it's gotten much harder because the federal government is putting much more responsibility on the states in terms of finances, and then you have 50 states, and each of us have our own jurisdiction and our own sovereignty, and we make our own choices. And the federal government today, under Trump, is really trying to interfere with how many of the states have decided we want to live as a commonwealth and we want to live as a society. And I think it's a moment that a lot of people are frustrated, and they want answers and they want action. And the biggest thing we were able to do at the state level is to try to keep everything running and everything afloat and try to offer stability when there is absolutely no stability from Washington right now.
How do you work with officials from other parts of the state who may have very different priorities?
We try to collaborate, we try to listen and hear each other out. And like I'm going to go visit a district in eastern Massachusetts in a couple of weeks, and I got people coming out to the Berkshires next week for a hearing and a commission meeting. And so you try to understand if in Franklin County there's economic hardship, and in Franklin County there's housing affordability issues, and in Franklin County there's a concern that we want to make sure our students are getting the best education they can. Well, that's true throughout the state. So as long as you find those areas of common interest, and then you try to figure out, instead of tackling this from one avenue, how do we do it in a couple of ways that everyone benefits, then I think we've had more success than I can remember in the last couple of years.
What are the most important statewide issues you're focused on right now?
Well, right now I'm the vice chair of transportation, so I'm working a lot on this transportation bill and this idea of what road projects and bridge projects and micro transit projects and public transit projects and west to east rail, like how do we make sure that Western Massachusetts has opportunities, like you mentioned, I think having trouble with a bus getting here, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do we make sure that becomes more reliable and more seamless so that people are able to do the things that they need to do? And that's a really big task because the subway and the commuter rail in eastern Massachusetts takes a lot of focus because that's where the most people live.
How do national politics impact your work at the state level?
Very major way is funding, because the federal government passed that bill and it cut a lot of resources from a lot of programs. And in Massachusetts, we have to figure out a way how to keep those programs running, like whether it's free school lunch or the RTA being free fare right now, or the community college being available for everybody, and UMass staying a great institution of public higher education. We're doing that all while the federal government is no longer a partner, but at times now an adversary trying to stop us, and it's very difficult.
How do you help people with disabilities through your work?
I just got an award 2 weeks ago, the Life Without Limits Award, because of the work I do with UCP of Western Massachusetts. And so I've done a lot of work trying to help them establish and really promote and expand opportunities for assistive technology. So the more people that have assistive technology, the more independent the lives they can lead, and the more opportunities they'll have for education and work and having a family if they want, and just having a life that is what all of us want, that is really, the dream of being in an amazing place like Massachusetts. So it's actually been something I've spent a pretty fair amount of time on.
What policies are you most passionate about advancing in the next few years?
The policies I'm generally most important are access to education, labor issues, so making sure people, when they work, have the opportunity to safety and a fair wage on their job, and making sure that if they choose to be in a union, that they're able to do that, but also that there's the opportunity for businesses to grow and businesses to be successful, because there's not really a lot of opportunity in joining a union if you don't have a job to begin with. And so you want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to succeed, and that the doors are there for them, and that they understand there's a way to open those doors and get through them. And that's what I'm pretty passionate about, and that's, like I said, what drove me to run. And obviously protecting the environment is always a little less maybe tangible in the short term, but certainly an important thing as we consider what we want life to look like over the next 50 years.
How do you handle disagreements or tough votes in the Senate?
Nobody's ever disagreed with me twice. No, I'm kidding. You try to focus on common ground, and I mean, if there's a tough vote, if it's something that the people of my district don't understand, then it's my responsibility to explain it to them. And if it's something that the legislative leadership or the governor is wrong on, then it's my duty to take the tough vote and explain it to them why that's how it works. And in the Senate, where there's only 40 of you, you get a better opportunity to try to navigate those relationships, because it's a really small body and we try to work together well.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to get involved in local or state politics?
The best advice I can actually give is, if you're interested in something like city or town politics, go to meetings, go to council meetings, go to select board meetings, go to town meeting, go to committee meetings. Actually understand what the municipality, city or town is working on, and then find out where the town needs help. And so that can be, in the small towns, there are always boards that they are desperate for volunteers. And at the city level, it's still the same. There's always people, there's always a need for good people. And if you're interested in state, federal, national politics, I would say the best thing you can do is work on a campaign first. Understand how campaigns work, because in understanding campaigns, you're going to understand how to listen to people and how to go door to door and how to make phone calls and how to be available. And if it turns out you think you like something, but you never practiced or you never gave it a real world shot, you're going to find it's much more difficult than if you've had some experience. And then if you're in campaign world, you start to get to know people that are involved in campaigns, and you get to see how things actually work, and then you can make a more informed decision on whether you're actually interested in that or not. And there's also a lot of other ways. If you're interested in government, you can do internships, you can work at organizations that are focused on issues. There's a lot of ways to be involved.
If you had unlimited money, what project would you create in Western Massachusetts?
Wow. If I had unlimited money, I would actually do maybe a couple of things. I would create a match program that if my communities were looking for funding, whether it's a grant or an earmark or an authorization, that if I could get it for them through the government, I would then personally match it. And then I would probably set up some kind of a scholarship that as long as you were willing to do the work, and as long as you were willing to go to class and try your best, that barrier would be broken down for people. And then I think that funding wouldn't be an issue. And then the last thing I think I would do would focus on workforce training and making programs available that if you needed a job and the only reason you weren't able to find one was because of skills, that you'd be able to get the skills you need, whether it's through college or vocational or apprenticeship. Because when I think back to my father and the time we struggled, the biggest problem he had was he had worked at a warehouse for 20 years. And when you've worked at a warehouse for 20 years and you're in your mid-40s, you don't have a lot of skills that transfer someone else. And so if I could do those three things, I think I'd be really happy. And if none of that worked, and I had unlimited money, I guess I would just start a fake company and just pay people to do silly things. But that way they'd have an income.
What do you hope your legacy will be as a state senator?
Wow. I hope that someday people will say, he really cared, and he really did a lot for us, and maybe there will be infrastructure and buildings and roads and jobs, and someone will think, oh yeah, I remember Paul Mark was involved in that, and I remember this and that, and if you ever drive around, like, there's things named after John Olver, there's things named after Silvio Conti, there's, when I went to UMass, there's the Maher Auditorium, it's like, those are recognitions of public service, so I would like for people to think I helped put our region on the map when it comes to government.
What are your plans for the future?
Well, today I'm going to go teach that class at GCC, and then I'm going to go down to Southwick to an awards ceremony, and after that I'm just going to keep plugging away at this. For now, it's a good job. It's a lot of work, but I certainly enjoy doing it, and I think there's a lot of opportunity right now, and I think it's important that we have people in office that actually care and that kind of know what they're doing to steer us through a pretty difficult time.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
No, thank you for having me, and it was really nice to meet you.
No problem, and thank you so much for your time today.
I understand why I wouldn't remember all 30 of those questions either.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Very welcome.
And thanks for watching GCTV. See you next time.
I wonder what